Let's be real, you've probably already used Spotify today, right? Maybe on your commute, or at the gym, or even right now. It's just everywhere. It's the undisputed king of audio, a service so woven into our lives that it feels totally permanent. But here's the thing, and this is the paradox we're going to unpack today. What if I told you that this giant, this cultural cornerstone, is actually built on some seriously shaky ground? Sounds crazy, doesn't it? How can the king of audio be so fragile? Well, let's dive in and break it down. Okay, so to really get why it's so fragile, you first have to understand just how huge Spotify is. I mean, the numbers are absolutely staggering. Get this. Spotify has a colossal audience. We're talking nearly 700 million people using it every single month. That's more than double its closest competitor. I mean, this is the company that basically convinced a whole generation to stop pirating music and actually pay for it. You could even argue they saved the entire music industry. And yet, this happens. After just one single earnings report missed its targets, Wall Street absolutely freaked out. They wiped out $16 billion of Spotify's value in one day. Now think about that. The company is still adding millions of users, but the market panics. That right there tells you something is deeply structurally wrong with the business. And this brings us to what's called the profitability paradox. It's super simple, but kind of mind-bending. For Spotify, more users and more money coming in has not meant more profit. In fact, for years, it felt like the bigger they got, the more money they lost. So why? Well, the reason is baked right into the DNA of their business model. So here's the heart of the problem. Picture this. For every single dollar Spotify earns, about 75 cents of it immediately goes right out the door. Poof, gone. It goes straight to the music labels and artists as royalty payments. That leaves them with just a quarter, just 25 cents to pay for everything else. We're talking all their engineers, all their marketing, R&D, you name it. That brutal cost structure is their Achilles heel, and it's a weakness that their biggest rivals can and do exploit. And that weakness, it opens the door to the real fight. This is what we're going to call the ecosystem war. And trust me, this isn't about who has a cooler app or better playlists. No. This is a clash of completely different ways of doing business. You see, Spotify's greatest achievement was, ironically, also its biggest mistake. By giving us all the world's music for one flat fee, they taught us all to think of music as a utility, like water or electricity. It's not a collection of unique, valuable songs anymore. It's just this giant interchangeable library. And when something becomes a commodity, the only thing that really matters is price. And look at what that does down the line. Spotify pays artists a tiny fraction of a cent every time you stream a song. But then you look at Apple Music, and they can afford to pay out way more. So how is that even possible? Simple. For Apple, music isn't the real business. And that gets us to the absolute core of this conflict. See, Spotify is in a street fight over fractions of a penny from audio streams. But its rivals, they're playing a totally different game. They're fighting for total, complete dominance of your entire digital life. Just think about how they're set up. Spotify is a standalone company. It has to make money from music. It's their whole reason for being. But for their competitors, music is just a feature, a cherry on top. Apple Music is basically a marketing tool to sell more iPhones. And YouTube Music, it's a little perk to keep you locked into Google's massive advertising empire. For them, making a profit on music is optional, a nice to have. So you see the massive imbalance here, right? It's completely asymmetrical. Spotify is stuck in a back alley knife fight over pennies, while its rivals are waging an all-out war with basically an infinite bank account, and they're using music as this heavily subsidized weapon. There is no way Spotify can win this fight by playing their game. It has to change the entire game. So the big question is, how does Spotify get out of this trap? Well, the answer lies in a pretty radical pivot, a really bold thesis for how it can build a future that's actually defensible. Here's the thesis, plain and simple. Spotify has to stop being a passive digital jukebox and become the YouTube of audio. That means shifting away from just being a library of licensed content and becoming an active, buzzing ecosystem driven by its own users. So what does that actually mean? A participatory creator ecosystem is just a way of saying the users aren't just listening, they're creating. Just think about YouTube for a second. YouTube doesn't spend billions licensing old Hollywood movies. Its power, its defensive moat, is built by the millions of creators uploading videos, building communities, and talking directly to their fans. That's a fortress you can't just buy with money. And look, this isn't just some abstract, high-level theory. You can actually translate this into a real product roadmap. Let's imagine something, let's call it Spotify's Future Studio. A set of tools designed specifically to turn every single listener into an active participant. This whole strategy would be built on 3 core pillars. First, you start with creation. We'll call that Spotify Studio. Then you move to interactive engagement with something like live jams. And finally, it all comes together with recognition through a reputation engine. The cool part is that each step builds on the last, creating a powerful network effect that a company like Apple or Google just can't copy. Okay, so let's break that down real quick. First up, Spotify Studio. Imagine simple, easy-to-use tools right inside the app that let you remix and mash up songs. Kind of like GarageBand meets TikTok, but for audio. Then you have live jams. These would be live, interactive audio events where artists can hang out directly with their biggest fans, do listening parties, Q&As, you name it. And finally, the reputation engine. This would be a system that actually rewards all those amazing playlist curators, the people who are already the tastemakers, and turns them from unpaid fans into real creators. You put all that together and you transform Spotify from a one-way street into a living, breathing, creative community. By empowering every user to break, remix, and share the stream, Spotify could finally build a defense that isn't based on shaky licensing deals, but on something much more powerful: human creativity. It would stop being just another utility and become the place where new audio culture is actually born. And really, this isn't just about whether Spotify survives, it's about what the entire future of audio looks like, which leaves us with one really powerful question to think about. What happens when every listener becomes a creator?